We're going to look at the reasons for American imperialism. And if you remember from the last video, we looked at the reasons for European imperialism, and really they're not much different than the American ones. This is a picture of Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders after during the Spanish-American War, and we'll look at that in a little more detail in another lecture. Well, many of the reasons, one was just the economics. The United States needed new markets. U.S. industries needed more raw materials. They needed to export goods for a growing economy. Farmers, agriculture was producing more food than is being consumed here in the United States at the time. And again, we're talking this time period around the turn of the century. And factories are producing more goods than can be consumed at home. And really, for an economy to grow, you have to have some international markets. And one way to get those is to have more territory. And the United States was following the lead of the European countries, as we saw before, that were dividing up Africa. Well, there was no way the U.S. was going to get in Africa, so we started looking elsewhere, more towards the Caribbean and into the Pacific basin. Militarily, there were many reasons. Admiral Mahan, in his book, as you can see here, The Influence of Sea Power Upon History, argued for a strong navy for several different reasons. One, to defend the shipping lanes. If you're going to have an overseas empire, overseas trade, at this time there were no planes, so it was going to be done by ships, and you had to make sure you could protect the ships. He also argued for military bases in the Caribbean, in Hawaii, and other Pacific islands. As you start looking at Hawaii and the other Pacific islands, this really starts to sow the seeds for World War II, some of the reasons there, and we'll look at those well in another 40 years or so. He also argued for a Panama Canal. At this time, you had to go all the way around South America to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and it took much time, money, expense. And if you could cut across the Isthmus of Panama, you could really reduce the time for ships to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. This would not only help the economies of America and other countries, but also it's very easily to send fleets from one ocean to the other. One expression of American imperialism at this time was the Great White Fleet. And the Great White Fleet, I'll just go on to the next slide here. Great White Fleet was from 1907 to 1909. President Roosevelt, and we'll look at him in a little more detail also. He's quite the interesting character. Dispatched 16 battleships of the Atlantic Fleet on a worldwide voyage for almost 2 years. And this, well, actually about 14 months. And actually this voyage was well, he kind of believed to show off American military might. And as you can see here, they covered some 43,000 miles, made 20 port calls. This was really to show the world that the United States was a power to reckon with. At this time, the United States had the third strongest navy in the world. And President Roosevelt, who's saying speak softly but carry a big stick, this was one of his big sticks to show the world that the United States could reach any part of it, and that we could protect ourselves. And he wanted to show everybody in the world that the United States definitely was a world power and should be somebody to be reckoned with. Well, so if you get right down to it, the United States' reason for imperialism really wasn't much different than the Europeans, except we had to look in a different part of the world. And so that will end this one.